After a long and restless night, the Nebraska farm boy nervously made his way to the San Francisco hotel ballroom for his latest test of courage. In the 26 months since the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, 26-year-old Ben Kuroki had faced death on countless occasions. He had survived 30 B-24 bombing missions in Europe and North Africa, including America's first attack on Rome, and the suicidal smokestack-level raid on Adolf Hitler's Romanian oil fields at Ploiești. He had survived an encounter with Moorish brigands, 3 months of Spanish captivity, and a failed escape attempt that ended with bullets whizzing around him. On his final raid in Europe, a German shell shattered his plexiglass gun turret and barely missed his head. He had returned to America the first Japanese-American war hero, and now he hoped to top that feat by becoming the first Japanese-American airman to bomb Japan. For all his good fortune to date, Ben's time in the Army had been steeped in struggle and despair, the result of bigotry and racial discrimination that had confronted him from his first days in uniform. One of 10 children born to Japanese immigrants, Ben was a high school graduate who seemed destined to spend the rest of his life growing potatoes and sugar beets with his father and brothers, and trucking fresh produce back and forth to Omaha and the Rio Grande Valley. But the events of December 7, 1941, changed everything. Nothing in his life had prepared Ben for the vitriol and suspicion that awaited him in the post-Pearl Harbor world beyond his remote corner of western Nebraska. Life was hard for the Kuroki children, but it was largely free of the prejudice and racial hatred that Shosuke and Naka Kuroki had encountered as Asian immigrants more than 35 years earlier. At tiny Hershey High School, Ben had been the popular vice president of his graduating class of 14 students. But after joining the Army Air Forces, he quietly cried himself to sleep some nights because of the racial epithets and ostracism that were staples of his daily life. When peers were given a crack at a bomber crew assignment, Ben was given weeks of kitchen duty and other menial tasks. He endured it all. Even after he was assigned to a newly formed B-24 group that was being rushed through training to join the air campaign ramping up in Europe, he seemed destined to spend the rest of the war as a clerk. Twice before overseas deployment, a pair of bigoted sergeants plotted to leave Ben behind. Twice, fair-minded white officers granted him a reprieve. From the moment he set foot in Britain in early September 1942, Ben felt a new sense of acceptance. Within weeks, he had talked his way into gunnery training, and then onto a B-24 crew. Given the chance to fight, he distinguished himself as an aerial gunner. On his first combat mission, a crewmate suffered a near-fatal head wound only a few feet from him. Later that night, Ben accepted that he probably wasn't going to survive his tour.